last week, the way that we began this, I asked you which one did you all want to see? Did you want to see the conversion from binary to decimal, or from hexadecimal to decimal? And you guys asked for hexadecimal to decimal. Now, did everyone get a chance to look at that? It's towards the end of that video from last week. Does anyone have questions from that in particular? And you feel free to say so in the chat too if you want to say it privately or whatever. Because I want to make sure everything's completely clear with this. So, okay, cool. Then I mentioned also last week, and I showed it. I was told that it wasn't as clear. But I'm gonna open up Python real quick. There are two built-in functions I told you exist that you can use, and if you want to be adventurous, you could, kind of code it on your own. But that would do the conversion for you from binary to decimal. From decimal to binary, and from decimal to hexadecimal. And so the binary function was called bin, and I give it and as you see here, we get a little screen tip. It says number, comma, or slash marks preceding arguments as positional only, which at this point in time, something you wouldn't need to worry about. But what does it say? It returns the binary representation of an integer. So it needs to be an integer. Luckily, your assignment is only for integers. So it's going to convert this binary it's going to convert the integer that's entered, or decimal, to binary. So if I wanted to say, look at 127, it converts it to 0B11111111. And I told you all that no matter what you do, no matter what the number is, it will always convert it. Now, the possible issue you could run into is the fact that for your assignment, it had to go up to 8 bits. So you needed 8 numbers here. Whereas this may not have those 8 digits, and it's always going to start off with 02. Well, if it didn't have those 8 digits, you just need to add on the zeros in front, however many zeros you needed, and that would have been it. And so there were a couple of ways that you could do that, which kind of will actually lead into what I think I mentioned a couple of times, how I want to talk about some different things you could do with strings. And so I'll mention one of them here, which we've looked at slicing before, but you can also find the length of a string. So I'm going to go to, let's just do 54, because I just did it. And I'm going to save it to a variable. I'm going to call it B for binary. B equals 54. Okay, let's look at B. There's B. All right, I want to get rid of those first two. Characters within this string, because they're not needed. That just lets me know it's binary. I already know it's binary because that's what I coded it for, right? Coded to see what the binary value was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these first two. And you may recall that you can do something that's known as splicing on a string. And what splicing does is it allows you to tell it to start at a certain point within the string and then go into a certain point. And you can also do it by certain step sizes. And so if you want to get all the string, this is what this will look like. : inside of these square brackets. That tells it to start at the beginning, go to the end, and the step size is 1. So it's kind of like all the pre-default settings for it. Okay, I'm gonna do that and let you guys see what that came out as. Notice it's the same. So let's see though what this would look like. If I am telling it instead of that, I'm going to start at position 2. Well, why would I want to start at position 2? Remember, strings in all our lists, they begin with an index of 0. So their starting position is 0. Then they go 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. I'm going to start at 2 because that will get rid of those first 2 parts because their positions are at 0 and 1. So by starting at 2 and not telling it where to finish, I'm telling it just to go into the end by default. I can include step size if I want to, but by default it's stepping by 1. So I don't have to put another colon. I could if I wanted to. So by doing this, notice I get the exact same thing with the one difference that the 0B is gone, right? So by using splicing, I'm able to see exactly where this is. So I'm able to see what the binary representation is of the decimal. Now, like I said, there was one thing with your code, you needed to be able to see, or it needed to be 8 bits. So it needed to be 8 digits long. This is clearly not 8 digits long, right? It's only 6. And there could be a way I could test to see how long it is. A couple of different ways. One thing you have seen, but maybe you didn't realize exactly all that it did, or how that it can be used, and that's okay. One other thing I do want to say this as just like a side note. A lot of things that we do, you may see it that one time. Are you expected to remember it then and there? No. But what I want you to do is you could maybe you make a list of different functions that I show you in class. That way you have them there. You can write a little description for yourself. But what actually would probably most likely happen for you in real life is that you would see these, you'll see it a couple times because it's being used a couple of times. You may remember it, you may not, but you may remember what it kind of does. And then you can just type into Google the description you're talking about and just say, like, I want to find the length of the string in Python. And then it'll tell you that there's a function called len that does just that. It tells you the length of any list that you give it. And so len, notice how it changed colors. That lets me know that it is a built-in function. So let me do this so you can see the screen tip. It says it takes an object. It returns the number of items in the container. Okay, so within our string binary, if I wanted to know how many items are in it, I can do length, and it tells me there's 6 of them. Now I said everything needed to be 8. Right? No matter what it was, it needs to be 8. So if it needs to be 8, no matter what, then I could just say 8 minus whatever the length is, and that would tell me how many zeros I need to have in front, right? Because remember, we need to pad it in the front with whatever amount we need. We told it to. Okay. And so what I could do then is, so let's see my answer. So I'm kind of bringing all this in together now. My answer would be what we did earlier. So let's see, we got our binary part. But I'm going to add to that string, I'm going to add something in the front. I'm going to add some zeros. How many zeros? I'm not sure. Actually, I am kind of sure. I know exactly what I want this to do. I want this to be whatever 8 minus the length of binary is. Because 8 minus length of binary in this case is 2, right? So 2 times this will give me 2 of these, and we're just going to add on the binary. So if I do that, I get those 2 zeros in front. Okay. So, any questions there? Ooh. This is not the only way to do this. Someone actually used padding on their string, which is a great way to do this as well. So padding, you pretty much are telling it how long the string needs to actually be. So I'll leave that as let's leave that as a question for someone to look up. All right, so I did mention how it's important to be able to look some of these things up. So let's actually just do it. So this way, how do I pad a string in Python? Look at that. I didn't even have to even type the in Python. I didn't even have to finish writing the word string. It came up, right? Again, so we got tons of different methods here. Click on the first one. Gives an example here. Number 5, left pad the string with 0 to make it linked 4. What does it do? zfill. Zfill is the function that I need, and it'll totally take care of it. There's a R justify. There's also a left justify too. But so what the only reason I did this is just so you could just see that if you're not sure how to do something, but you understand maybe what it's called, or like even if I didn't know it was padding, if I had put in, let's say, putting zeros in front of, I saw something come up. Anyway, put zeros in front of numbers in Python. zfill tells me. This is the way I'm more used to. Using the format that we've already looked at before. This is the method that someone did in their homework, so I really enjoyed seeing that. You just tell it how many zeros you need right there, or how big it needs to be. Kind of what we did with the, what did we do that with? I think we did that with the D. We told it need to be this many digits, and it would add in those zeros automatically or put blank spaces. But yeah, so tons of different ways to do this if I was not sure. And it was as simple as just doing a Google search to see how to do so. Right? Because, and there's a reason I'm mentioning this. It's not so like, oh, stop emailing me, figure it out yourself. That is not what I want you to do. I want you to email me. I want to help you and direct you in the right direction. But what I also want to occur is for you to possibly just do a Google search, see so that you can see that you can find these things on your own. And then maybe you find it and you're not sure how to use it, and then that's where we talk. But if you have actually actively looked for something and we talk, then you know it is what it is. But if you haven't, I may start saying, well, have you tried Google searching yet? Again, it's not to, I'm not trying to deter you from talking to me or asking me questions. I want you to. But I also want you to, but I want you to think of it this way. The Python documentation has thousands upon thousands of different codes, like functions that are built in, examples and everything. I don't expect you to know it all the way through. I don't know it all the way through. And people add things to that. I don't want to say daily. It can happen daily, but let's just say frequently. Things are added to that. So new features. There's a new module someone made that will do this other thing for you. But how do you find those things? You Google search. That's exactly what you do. And so I want to encourage you all to look for those. And I do know that some, because I told that to some people that email me. It's like, have you tried Google search? Like, how do I don't understand how to convert from binary to decimal or for whatever. Have you tried Google searching to see an example? Maybe have you looked at a YouTube video? Have you looked at the video that is given to you in the course about the conversions between? So this is the way you should be thinking through things. Because again, what I saw with this wasn't the problem. It was the planning. And the issues with planning was not knowing how to do the actual conversions, not knowing how to do the math. There is no math prerequisite for this class. So therefore you are not expected to know how to do some of the math that we've done in this class. I did have someone early on in the beginning that was upset about the triangle calculator, that assignment, and it was specifically because of the math. And there have been people that have quit the class before because of that, because, oh, this is not a math class, why are we doing this? You can see that there are many useful tools mathematically within Python, within any language, honestly, right, that you can use. And but the purpose of it is not just to do math, it's to program something, to automate something for yourself. So, all right, I'm getting off my soapbox there. But let's continue. Before we continue, are there any questions or anything specific with this assignment that you had questions about besides the conversions? Because we're going to do that too. No? Okay, cool. So, how about this? Do a new file. We are on week 7, I believe. So. Okay. There we go. Okay. So, first things first. Actually, I'll probably do it before this. For the conversion, let's just do a Google Doc. Gonna get a blank Google Doc like I usually do. Is it really not gonna give me an option? There we go. All right. So, which one do you want to do first? We got 4 different versions to do. Which one do you all want to do first? Got binary to decimal. Got decimal binary to decimal. Okay, so call it out already. Binary to decimal. All right. Binary to decimal. Okay. So let's kind of go back and maybe make sure we fully understand the problem. So the binary to decimal, we're going to have a string going from this number to this number, and we want the binary, or we want the decimal equivalent. I'm going to copy this, actually. Bring it over here. Okay. All right, that's what we want to do. Let's make sure that I know. All right, so what's given to us, depending on how we take it, we're going to get user input, right? They're going to give us the binary value. And it's going to, did you guys see that? It has never done that for me. Did you see that? It just auto-completed for me. That's kind of, I think that's creepy, but sorry. I hope that's on camera now. The binary number, and what do we want to do with it? What do we know about it? It's going to be how long? Well, it has to be 8 bits, so it's 8 bits long, which really means it is 8 digits. Okay, that might be important information. We'll see. Okay, and then what do we want to do with it? We're going to convert it. Super creepy. All right. So now that we're having it convert us from binary to decimal, how do we do that? What's the first thing that you would do since we have this string? So we have this string of binary values. So let's just imagine it wasn't a string. Let's just imagine it wasn't. We'll say they were all numbers, each one individually. How do you convert from binary to decimal? Well, again, many of you said you did not know what that means. So what that means is we're going from a number system where we only have 2 digits, and within those 2 digits we have certain place values. So our place values increase by the powers of 2. So let's see, decimal goes from like the hundreds. You have the tens, then you have the ones, right? And then it would go tenths and so on and so forth. And it would go up from here, right? It would go thousands. Oops. And so on. I'm not gonna type out all of them because it would just keep going. Well, binary is similar, except instead of based off tens, right? Because you have 10 to the 0 power is 1, or you just think of starting at 1. 1 times 10 is 10. 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is 1,000. 1,000 times 10 is 10,000. And that's how those place values come to place. It's all based off of tens. Binary goes sorry, 8. So goes 256, 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. So just like the other one, except this was based off tens, these are based off twos. Well, let's see that. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. 32 times 2 is 64. 64 times 2 is 128. 128 times 2 is 256. And then this can keep going from there. Okay. So what does that mean? Each of our 8 digits here represents one of these place values. Okay. So let's look at talk about an example within decimals. So someone give me a number, any number you want. First number someone gives me, doesn't matter what it is. 45.
78.
Okay. All right. Sorry, someone beat you to it. It's okay. 45. We look at 78 too. I can do 2 examples. So 40 and 45. So 45 is really saying 4 times 10, because that's the place value it's in, right? It's in the tens place, plus 5 times 1, because that's the value in this place value, in the ones place. Okay. Another example. So someone said 78. So really what that is 7 times 10, because 7 is in the tens place value, plus 8 times 1, because 8 is in the ones place value. Okay. Well, let's look at an example in binary. You guys can put one in the chat, or I can just pick one from on here. All right, cool. I guess I'll just pick this one. 011000011. Let's see if I remember that, because it's an image, so I can't cut and paste it or copy and paste it. All right, so let's see. We got 011000011. Okay, what the heck does that mean? Well, we have 8 digits here. So this first one, so we'll start here. So we got the ones place, 2s, the 4s, the 8s, the 16, 30 seconds, excuse me, 64, and the 128s. So that means we're taking 0 times the 128, because it's in the 128 place value, plus 1 times 64, because it's in the 64 place value, plus 1 times 32, because it's in the 32nd place value, plus 0 times 16, because 0 is in the 16th place value, plus 0 times 8, because 0 is in the 8th place value, plus 0 times 4, because 0 is in the 4th place value, plus 1 times 2, because 1 is in the 2's place value, and 1 times 1, because 1 is in the 1's place value. And so because that's exactly what that actually means, we could do this multiplication and addition in order to figure out what the decimal equivalent would be. And so we getting rid of the zeros, we got 64 plus 32 plus 2 plus 1. And upon doing that, 64 plus 32 gives us 96, plus 3 more, we get 99. And that's exactly how you would actually convert a 8-bit binary representation to a decimal. You go to each part and look at each place value. Okay. So is there a question there? Anyone? Okay. All right. So now that we understand how to make that conversion from binary to decimal, and please say something if it's still it's confusing. I hope that cleared up that conversion from binary to decimal. Now that we have that, we know that all we need to do is take each one of these digits, multiply it times whatever place value it's in, right? And then at the end, take the total. So how do we go into the string to look at each part of it? Any suggestions? Tons of different ways to do this too, guys. So, and I saw, see, I think I only looked at like 3 years assignments in full so far, but I saw different methods in all 3 of them, which I thought was great. So, in essence, many of you pretty much hard coded it, except for one of you. One of you used a loop to do so. Out of the 3 I saw, that I saw in depth, one person really used a loop to do it, which was cool. Any suggestions from anyone on how we can go in and look at each part of this string? Well, let's talk about slicing. So how about we try to use splicing, excuse me. Let's see if we could possibly do the same thing with that in some kind of way. Recall that every string is really just like a list of characters, right? So in essence, if I really wanted to, now that they gave me this binary string here, all I need to do is take its value. So maybe I would say user input, or maybe I set binary equal to the user's input. And so because the binary is the user's input, to get the first thing, the first part, I could just do binary 0. So let me, looks like it's been zoomed out, honestly. Oh, it is. That's great. They finally added citations to Google Docs. That's hilarious. They're trying so hard to be like, okay, anyway. So binary 0, that would literally get me the 0th index. So it'll get me the first thing that we see in the string. So in this example, it would be that 0 there. Okay. Well, what did I do with that 0? I multiplied it times 128, right? Okay. I could literally just tell it to do that here if I want to. What about the next thing? Well, the next one is binary and it's a 1. Well, what did I do with the thing that's in the 1 position? That's the second thing here. What did I do with that? I multiplied times 64. 4. Okay. What about the next thing? What did I do? The next thing was in the second position, and I multiplied it times 32. All right, and then I keep going till I got to the last part. What position is the last part in? So this is 0, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, that's 6, that's 7. I could take the 7th part, or the thing that's in the 7th position, I multiply that times 1. This whole result is my decimal. That's all I need to do, right? So that's what we just figured out. That's all we need to do in order to convert from binary to decimal. Well, does this always work? It will for this problem because we said they have to enter in an 8-bit digit here, or sorry, 8-bit binary value. If we wanted it to work for any binary number, which some of you mentioned you wanted it to do, which is fine. Is there a way for you to see how many numbers you need to go up to? Is there a way to see how long this string is? Yeah, I just showed you again, right? len will give you the length of the container. That's one way that you can find out how many times you need to do a multiplication and addition. We've used a for loop before to go through a string to get each character. We've done that before in class. You may recall when we did for character in Christopher, and I put my name in strings in it, and we had it print out each character. And so it printed out C, and then R, H, and R, I, and S, but each one was on a different line because it was continuing to print it out for us. So a couple of different methods to do this. All right. Now, this is not the only way that you could have converted this. This is just one example. I just picked something based off of us talking about slicing and then us going to positions within a string. I thought it would be a good tie-in between them. But this was not the way to do this. Technically, probably not even sufficient because everything's hard-coded here. And if you wanted to expand this to work for any any bit, you could pretty easily. So, any questions about the conversion from binary to decimal? Do y'all want to see it in code? You want to see it in Python?
Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna take this information and I'm gonna copy it, and then we're gonna go over here to Python. We're gonna paste it in so that way I get my comments in because I've already kind of planned it out. So it says user input. So I'm gonna be converting binary string. It's gonna be a string of binary values. So I'm gonna just call it binary. I think that's what I said I would call it. And this is gonna be the user input. Since I said I want this to be a string, I'm not gonna cast this to anything because I want it to return as a string. Remember, input automatically gives you a string back. So I'm gonna tell them to, let's see. Let's see, how does that put? Just enter a binary value to be converted to decimal. Okay, so that's done. So this is me explaining the process to myself because I needed it. I needed it written down for myself so I can make sure I know how to do this appropriately. And it's like, okay, make sure I have binary saved as the name. Oh, I do. So pretty much I'm just doing what's written right here. This is exactly all I need to do. So since that's already kind of there, I'm just going to copy and paste. Oops. I'm going to copy and paste it. And of course, I need to fill out these little parts here, right? Because they're not anything right now. So binary 3 times 16 plus, let's see. I'm gonna have to do binary 4, binary 5. Oops, I thought I got a plus sign in there. Guess I did not. And I'm also gonna have to do binary 6. So me being lazy, got 0, 1, 2, 3. I need to do 4. It's gonna be 8. I need to do 5. Gonna go down to 4. And I need to do 6. Goes down to 2. Now I'm all done. So however I wanted to put this, I could. So print whatever the binary thing is, whatever they gave me, is equivalent to whatever my get is decimal. As a decimal. Or maybe I say in base 10. Be fancy. Oops. What's that? Now this will cause an error because I didn't do something. I'm gonna take some time, drink some water, while you all look through, because there's only 2 lines of code here, really, right? For you to look through and tell me what is wrong. Why would I tell you that this is going to give me an error? See if you guys can figure it out without us running it. Conceptually, everything is correct, but decimal is not defined. I defined it here. Are you good? Thanks for pointing it out. Format is incomplete. No. So I use F format, so I can just put an F here. The squiggly brackets will tell it what to go look for as a variable and then pull it in. So that's good. Plus equals should only be used if you are setting something and then you need to add something else onto it. I could have done that with this, right? I could have said decimal equals this first one, go to another line, decimal plus equals the next part. But I decided to do it all in one line. That would have made it a lot easier to look at, actually. And some would actually say it's actually better for the code. I've seen tests by that. So not a bad idea, but it's not going to cause me an error. So think about what's being brought in. Think about usually most errors come to place where something isn't closed off properly, something isn't been defined, like Kanash mentioned earlier, but everything's been defined, or there's an issue with typing. So usually those are the common errors. Keep the suggestions going. You guys got some good stuff. Ah, you got it. And then Kanash got it. So it has to do with integers and has to do with strings. So input always returns a string, right? So this thing is a string. What's happening here? We're taking a string times an int. When you do that, in this case, we would get whatever this was, we would get 128 of them. And then we would add on to that same string, whatever this is, 4 times, and so on and so forth. Because this is still seen as a string. If I actually want to do integer multiplication, I need to tell it to pretend to be an int. All right, cool. So if there's any other errors, I was not planning on it. So that was the only one I was planning on occurring here. Let's take a look, see what we got going on here. Oh yeah, I need to save it. We'll see around 7, right? Yeah. Cool. So I'm going to give it a value. Let's use the example one that we had earlier that we expect to be 99, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. Yay! It works. Ooh. So I wanted to show how I think we spent probably like maybe 13 minutes doing that. With the explanation and all. So just looking at, I want just to use an example to look at once again how important it is to plan things out. Because if like I said, many of you say you didn't understand how to actually do the actual conversion. Well, that's fine. Well, let's try it. I've told some of you sometimes. I think I even said this at last or 2 weeks ago. Actually, like I sit down and write out what would happen with an example, so that I can see what I need to make sure my code is taken care of. I give you an example. Last night I was doing some homework. I started at 8 o'clock. I finished at 3:49 a.m. And I spent 4 hours. That last 4 hours was on one thing. I had 76,000 and something columns of data. Oh no, rows of data I was looking at, and I couldn't see what all of them looked like because I'm not finna look through 76,000 individual rows. And so I made a major assumption that they all looked a certain way, and so I coded my program to take that into account and to do some manipulation. So I got my result, and it kept coming up wrong, and I would print out so I can compare it visually, and it looked the exact same. And so I wrote a different program so I could compare, so I could actually see what's wrong, what's not the same. And I got 2,000 things that weren't the same. And I was very surprised because I was like, I don't understand how I would not see these 2,000 things. And I could not figure out why it was wrong. And so I had to go back and stop trying to make it somehow magically do something and just code it for what I could not see. It was crazy. And so I mentioned that because when you guys did the hexadecimal, some of you were asking about the is alpha, is numeric. Like, do you have to use those? And they are good things to use. So let's take a look and see what those are. Actually, well, before I do that, just mentioning how like going back and keeping things simple and seeing, you may not be able to see every possible thing that could be done with the code, but actually planning it out can get you somewhere. Because if I look at it in hindsight, I had 76,000 something rows to look at, which I couldn't see all of it because it would have been impossible for me to like gather all of that in my mind mentally and memorize the order and the way things looked for all of them. But I could generalize it enough to get me so that I got almost all of them, all but 2,000 and something. Like that's a good proportion. And then after that, after seeing what those 2,000 times where it messed up was, I could see where I need to make my change in code. But everything, I had to visually write it out for myself. That's what I did. So I could actually see, how do I need to code this? How is this going to parse through this process? What order do things need to happen? So me, with my experience for 14, going on 14 years, I still do that. Professor Steady, 30 years in Maricopa, numerous before that, still does that same exact thing. Every developer I know, and I say developer, not coder, every developer I know and programmer I know, they do the same thing. And when they don't, they're more likely to make a mistake. So again, I told y'all, I think like week 2, that I'm going to keep honing in on this. It is very important to plan out what you're doing. So that way you know exactly what you need to. It makes it easier to find out where your mistakes are. So, all right. So questions about this. Did you find this helpful? You think it's not helpful at all still and need another one? Ooh. Ooh. Glad. That's what we're here for. Make things a little easier. So, all right. We did the hexadecimal last week, so that one was covered with one way to do it. And then I showed you how you can do the bin one. I told you all how there's a so going from decimal to bin, you could just use the bin function. If you wanted to do it by hand, or not by hand, but you wanted to code it to do so, you could have. I gave you those 2 functions so that you wouldn't have to, but that's a good test for yourself. You can go ahead and turn it in so that you use bin and hex, but play around with it on your own to see, can I get this to actually convert on my own? It's a good exercise. But with that being said, let me just, for this video, so that it's on this video as well, how to do the hex to decimal to hex. HEX, hex will do a hexadecimal representation of the integer that's given. So if I put 99 in here, gives me 663. Notice how bin started with 0b, how hex starts with 0x. Hexadecimal is base 16. Hexa or sexa means 6. Decimal means 10. Add the 2 together, you get 16. So that's why 16 is a 10, because it starts off with the ones place and then the 16s place. So cool. All right, any questions about this assignment? All right, sweet. For the palindrome one, I told you to focus mainly on just if it's the same forwards and backwards. If you wanted to get fancy and remove some of the punctuations in between, you could, but it was not necessary for you to do so. But I will talk about what that would look like right now, actually. So I mentioned earlier about an is numeric or is alpha and how some of you were asking me about that. So that's another string function. And I told you we would look at some string manipulations today. So let's look at that. Let's see what that is all about. So there are a couple of built-in functions for manipulating with strings, and they all, the ones that I'm about to go look at, will return Boolean results. What does Boolean mean? What kind of values are Boolean? See if you guys know what that is. Remember Boolean? Yeah, true, false. After reading the assignment, it stated that we use only if and else then that we have used loops. I thought I erased that part. So I remember seeing it in there. I was like, oh, you guys will learn loops. You learn lists. Go ahead and use it. Yeah, you can use loops. Yeah, I was expecting someone to, or some of you to. Yeah, loops were fine. And so was the bin and hex. Yep. You're talking about the binary hexadecimal one, right, Ronnie? Actually, let me make sure I'm clear. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You could use loops. I thought I caught that and had to erase it. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Let's make sure when we look at this week's assignments, make sure we look at that. Make sure I took care of that too. So, yeah. So, all right. So, for strings, there are a couple of functions that will return Booleans to tell you stuff about the string, like its structure and what it looks like. So the first one, actually, I guess I'll put these in the code file. Let me just send that to you. So look at some string manipulations. So let's look at some characteristics of a string that will return Boolean. So the first one is called is al num. Okay? I usually show 2 others before I go to this, but I think it's probably the most common one that I personally use. So is alnum. What it does is it looks to see if the string is all alpha numeric characters. Do y'all know what that means, alphanumeric characters? Does anyone not know what that means? Letters and numbers. Okay, that's all we're looking for. Do we have letters and numbers? All right. And so how does it work? I do a couple of I'm gonna be really actually let me do this first before I get lazy. User equals input, enter the string of characters. And so I'm gonna have the user give some characters, and then we're just gonna check to see if it is alphanum or not. So alnum. And all I'm gonna do is take the user string that they gave me, and I'm gonna do is alnum. And I'll open parentheses, and I'm gonna close parentheses. And that's it. And so it'll give me a true if it is, it'll give me a false if it's not. Okay. So I'm gonna comment out the rest of this here, so we don't have to go through that again. So we can run this, see what this looks like. Save it. Enter some characters. So is it alnum? True. So just letters and numbers. So I'm gonna run it again. Oops, I messed that up. It's false. Notice I have some square brackets in here. So it is false. Okay. That is alnum. So that's the most common one that I use, I said. The reason is because usually when I'm looking at a string, I may want to tidy it up. So I want to make sure it only has alphanumeric characters. Or sometimes I may use some of these other 2 things. Sometimes I may want to only know, is it alpha? So let me get crazy. There we go. So is alpha. What do you guys think that's going to do? Yep, just the letters. That's right. Okay. And can't see yours. Okay, so it's still gonna be true for alpha. Alpha's false because there's that 3 there. Now it gives me true because it's nothing but letters. All right. So the next most popular one I use is numeric. So I'm sure you all can understand what numeric would be. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. Sometimes I forget it, like with this one, sometimes I'll put is alpha num. I'll write this whole thing of code, and then it'll spit back out trace error. Is alpha num is not a defined method, and then I'm like, ah, crap. I have to figure out how's that spelled again? What was it called? I usually end up looking it up. I swear to you, I actually did that Saturday because I had to use it in my test. I put alpha num. Because once I forget how some of these things are spelled sometimes, or it's like I understand, I know what I want. So what did I do? I Google searched it. It's like, oh, it's Al Num, Christopher. You gotta remember that. Funny enough, which I think I showed you all last week, how I have a list of everything, and I'm gonna go through with you all in this class on this notepad, so that way I could just follow along, and I'll add what we were on. I just literally go down this list, and so it's on here, but I forgot how it was spelled. I just think that's funny. Also, just to go back to the fact that it's okay if you forget something, as long as you know what it's like or what it is that you want to do, you can Google search it. So, all right. So is numeric we're going to use next. So print numeric, comma user dot is numeric. All right. Let's run this guy here. So enter string. Yeah, it's true. All right. False. Okay. So again, that's these are like the three most useful ones that I have. I'll show you the fourth one too. I'm going to go through all of them. I'm trying to go in order of what I actually find useful in my own life. It may be completely different for you and what you decide to do. I can see is alpha or alpha none and something else we're going to look at being more useful for those in cyber, just because of what you need to actually go, what you actually need to be written. So most of your stuff will be just numbers, or it could be a certain pattern, or like if you're looking for a certain IP address, they have a certain format they follow. So you might say, oh, the first does it have 3 numbers, and then there's the next part of period, and then so on and so forth. And those are uses for it. Another thing for is numeric is maybe if someone has a phone number, I could get rid of all the dashes or whatever, and then is everything else a number? How many numbers is it? I could check for that too. Uh, so, like using len, I can use len to check to see how what the length is, and I can use is numeric to make sure everything is a number inside. So real uses for this stuff. Okay, the next most common one that I use is space. If the string is a white space character, someone Google search the function is space and tell me what you find out about it. Well, this whole white space character thing is that I mentioned. See if we can get someone to maybe define a little more of what the heck does that mean. Um, Google search for is space. So the is space method returns true if there is only white string characters in a string. All right, cool. If not, it returns false. Well, what is a white space character? Let you guys search for that. Some of you may be able to take some guesses while others are searching, or you may be doing both. Maybe if you look at what I typed just now, that might have give you a hint. So someone said is a tab, maybe? Yes, a tab is a white space character. Anyone have some other characters they can think of? The slash is okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Yes. New line. A new line is a character, so that slash n is a new line is also a white space character. Yeah. Space bar. You just press space. The space is a white space character. So yeah. So you guys have an idea of what white space characters are. It's anything that would cause white space. So anything between any other characters that you would visually see, any symbols you would visibly see. Yeah, that is a white space character. Cool. Cool. All right. There are a couple others besides just the tab and new line that are also escape characters. Those are the ones I showed you all because they were most common, if you recall. Seeing that. All right. So let's look at some other things that could possibly show up in your life. I want you guys to look up this one too. Is decimal. I want you to tell me what that is. It'll actually tell us here when I do it here. But I want you to look it up. Is decimal and look up is digit as well. See what it says about what a decimal is. Same thing for digit. Okay. What kind of examples do you see of decimal characters? Okay. Run these guys here. Oops, not what I want to do. Gave me all false that time. Anyone got an idea why I got all falses on this one? Clearly, only numbers were entered in, right? Space. Yep, I added a space in. Good. Good. Let's see. Okay, so I entered this number in. I got true. Do this again. Oops. I put a dot in there. Why is that not working? Let's see what does decimal do. So it doesn't like anyone gave me a response yet. I got Rodney gave us the formal definition of it. Yes, the dot is not a digit. You are correct. But someone asked, could we just put a dot in there for a decimal? Notice it also gave you false. So that's not what we want. So let me talk about some of these too. So Stack Overflow is usually like if you're in any coding language, a float is digits. Yes, a float is digits. A floating number is a digit. So when you are doing coding, Stack Overflow is a good place to go to. They generally have like people have posted questions and people have provided answers. W3 Schools is a big company. The W3 is www. You guys may have heard of www or use that in some lingo in some kind of way. Anything on the internet. So they actually like document on ways to use like how HTML works, which is what the language that your web pages are written in. Python is also used when creating web pages and making them dynamic. So is JavaScript and some other things. And so they have some lessons on using these as well. So yeah, so that's another good source. Or if you I was hoping to see straight up, yeah, Python documentation. This is just straight up, this is what Python says it is. So let's take a look at this guy here. So Rodney put some good stuff in here. A float is not it. Float is not digits. Is not its digits. So let's look at these. So notice here we put 1, we get true for all of them. We put 1.0, you get false for all of them. When you put in a half, you get false for both of them too. And so this person's saying, how do you even use these? And so here, they're showing how if you use a different, how do I say this? This is called Unicode. So what this is how you can enter in emojis and things like that, or special characters that aren't made normally on your keyboard. This is like the code you would put in order for it to actually print out that type of string. So those, if they are digits, then is digit will catch it. That's how it is decimal does not. This is how someone made a superscript for 2, and that's not a decimal. That is a digit. This case, someone did 1/2. 1/2 is numeric. It is not a digit. It is also not considering it to be a decimal. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you had something as a binary number, because we just talked about binary and hexadecimal, and you try to do is decimal, it would also return false. So if I could tell it that it was binary, which I can, there's some ways to do that, but that's not going outside the scope of the class really. But so with all that being said, these are, I get all 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I'm missing 2 of them. So let me go back. There's 2 more. These, the next 2 are kind of like, I mean, they're cool to use, but I think you guys will understand what they mean. They are is lower and is upper. You guys think you understand what that means? What do you think is lower for? We've seen the lower function used before and the upper function, but this is lower and is upper. What do you guys think these are? Let me look it up. I want you to kind of think about it. What do you think it's going to do? Lowercase and uppercase. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to do. So lower user dot is. So this is all lowercase. This is upper. Okay, now we got them all. Okay. Whoop. Oh, I called it UPAR. There you go. Take a look at that. It said string object has no attribute is UPAR. That's how I recognize I typed the wrong thing. So notice here it says it's true, they're all lower. Notice here it says they're both false. That's true. upper. Notice here it gave me true for lower, even though there are numbers in here. The numbers do not count for cases for upper or lower, so it will ignore them. So, any questions about the different types of strings you could have or how they could be written? We've seen what the lower function can do. We've seen what the upper function can do as well. We've seen what len can do. We've looked at strings as arrays. We've done multi-line strings. You've used print. You're going to keep using print a lot in this course. We've done slicing or splicing. We've looked at the negative splicings. Some of you may have used that in your palindrome. We've looked at len. We looked at count. We use find. We did not talk about starts with and ends with. Those can be useful. Let's see, I'm gonna give it a random string. So Christopher dot starts with gave me a false. I asked it starts with C and it gave me false. How is this false? Someone tell me. Yes, it's lowercase. That's why. So if I did uppercase, then it's true. It works fine. Okay. So ends with works kind of the same, except it's looking at the end result. I don't have to just do one letter too. I could have it be a couple of things. How that becomes useful would just depend on what you're doing. For instance, with the homework that I was working on when I was taking a list of strands of some type of disease that people may have, and there's like 4 different versions of it. But anyway, each strand has like a version. It has if you're a male or female, or each strand has a version of it, or sorry, type. It has a gender affiliated with it, male or female, and then it has an age group affiliated with it. So I needed to see, did it begin with certain letters in order to define what type it had. I need to see if it ended with certain numbers to see what the age group was. I needed to see what the middle part was by splicing to see what the middle part was so I can know if it was male or female. So those are different things that you could do, or different ways you could use this. So that's just me like talking about experiences that I've had more recently when using these. Okay, so there we go. We've hit almost all of these string functions. There's 2 that I would like to look at in the future. We'll probably look at that next week. But with the sake of, since we got an hour left, there's some other things I want to look at. I will mention one more or 2 more. Capitalize and case fold. Anyone have an idea what capitalize may do? Well, we know upper capitalizes all letters. Actually, I'm gonna make a string, call it S. This thing here. Let's see, I'm gonna do S dot capitalize. And so we know upper would make them all uppercase. So Rodney thinks that this capitalize may do the same. Actually will not. It'll capitalize the first one. So like if someone said like you may tell a child to, like when they're writing their name, you say capitalize your name. You don't mean for them to capitalize every letter. You want them to just capitalize the first one. So it's that same kind of capitalize. But upper would capitalize all the letters. Here's another one. Let's see this. This is called case fold. So case fold, as you can see, works very similar to lower. So actually, let me put S in front of it. So it says returns of a version of the string suitable for caseless comparison. So this pretty much is supposed to pretty much take care of the fact of, you know how I think I mentioned in it was with the hexadecimal that you guys may want to use .lower, .upper to ensure that things would be in the same case of whatever you're going to compare it with. Case fold would take care of that automatically. It would take two things and be like, I don't care if you're upper or lowercase. I'm gonna ignore that while I compare you two things. So it's very helpful with that. But that's it for now with this string stuff. So we'll look at how to replace certain parts of a string, how to split a string up, and how to join pieces back together as well in the future. So questions for now? Anyone? Okay. I want to use the remainder of the time to take a look at this week's assignments. These two things. Oh, I remember what else I want to do. So I was going to use this as kind of a segue into it. So, know how we had to keep running this over and over again? And someone asked me about this last week, and I thought it was great. It's like, yay, someone else looked at this and said, I don't like that I have to keep running my code every time I want to test something. I wish it would just keep going so I didn't have to do that. Well, guess what? You can actually do that. You can do that. So if I wanted this to keep going until a certain event happened, I could do that. So for instance, if I wanted this to keep running, so I wanted it to keep asking me for user input and then printing out this stuff, I could make it continue to do that forever until some certain event happens. Okay. How could you make something repeat itself over and over again until a certain event happens? Anyone got any ideas? Something that we've learned that will keep going until some condition is met. Something that will repeat until a condition is met. A loop and a break. A loop and a break and a loop. Yep. That's correct. So we learned two loops, while loop and for loop. Which one of those would we want to keep going until a certain condition was met? A while loop or for loop? Wow. Yep, got a couple of wows. That's right, while loop. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do a while loop. And while loops take a certain condition, which we'll define in a second. So while whatever the condition is, I want this stuff to keep going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to indent all of these guys and do it from edit, can do it from format. I can indent the region. So all of those will now be in the while loops code block. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to make up a, I forgot that's already a predefined one, so I'm not going to do that. So I'll say whenever the user, okay, so while the user is not equal to exit. Maybe I'll do this case fold. So while user is not exit, this can keep going. So I'm going to start user off as just some string, empty string, so it will go through. So while it's not exit, it's going to keep going. Where's user at? It's right here. And maybe I'll tell them enter exit to stop program. I'm gonna run this and go. Okay, go. Huh? Was it not stopping? Oh yeah, I should read it. It says to press exit. Okay. So that may be useful to some of you. Actually, will probably be useful in your next assignment. Someone did ask about it last week, so I wanted to bring that up. That yes, you can modify some of the assignments in any way that you see that may be more useful to you. So if you say, hey, I want to keep going without me having to keep running every time I want to test it, use it. If that person is comfortable with me saying who they are, I will totally give you the shout out for it, but I wasn't quite sure, so I didn't want to call your name out in front of everybody. But it was a great suggestion, and it is totally can be done. And that's actually how people would actually program in real life. Like all the things that we've had done, we would make a little menu to tell the people to enter in stuff to do whatever in this code, but do this one thing to make it stop. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep asking you stuff, just like I did here. Like user has to enter and exit. You can have user enter in the letter X. You could have user enter in the number 0 or -1. Like there's different ways that people program a while loop at the beginning, so it'll keep going, so that you can test multiple things without stopping. So yeah, pretty cool. Okay, so let's take a look at your assignments. Let's take a short break here to stretch. My knees are hurting, so I can use your restroom. So be right back. Okay, so assignment 10, cafe invoice. So the idea is to print this kind of menu, which if you think back to your binary decimal hexadecimal assignment, you did this exact same thing already. Right? You printed out a little menu that people could see, so they knew what to press to move forward or to do certain things. So the idea is to do similar here. So the user would like a program to help with invoicing each order. So pretty much you work at Simple Cafe, you want to create a menu for them, and then pretty much kind of like a POS system where the user can enter in what's being ordered, and it'll automatically it'll give you a printout, so an invoice of it, similar here. Tell you what's ordered, price, ordered, price, ordered, price. And then a subtotal, which should be the sum of these guys. The calculation for the tax. and then the total. And after that, gives a nice little phrase, but then it gives you the date time of your receipt, so you can know when this order went through. So we're gonna take a look and see how all this is done. So each item on the menu is ordered basically by selecting these letters. So you tell them what the order or what you want from these letters. You can order multiple hamburgers. If you're like me in my college days, I will order 10 hamburgers at one sitting. That's exactly what that's what you do here. I could put 10 of these, 10 A's, and then I would have enough food, plus a Diet Coke. That'd be good enough to go. Or Diet Dr. Pepper. I don't like Coke. But yeah, so that's what you can do here. So that's the program. That's simple enough, to be honest. The question is though, when you get this string of items that are going to be purchased, which could have multiple of the same things, how do you know what to have print out? How do you know what to add to the subtotal? How do you know at the end, once everything's all printed out, what to print out for the subtotal, what to print out for tax, what to print out for total, and how do you get this guy here, this date timestamp? So, well, to help you get started, there's a lot of little tips here. And in your instructions, the user should be prompted to enter a string containing their order. This stuff here, you could pretty much copy and paste this if you wanted to, so that you would have it, so you can print it out. Use a multi-line code if you want to, or a multi-line string if you want to make it easier so it prints. But have your menu. Ask the user to enter in some letters of what they want ordered. It doesn't have to be in alphabetical order even. After that, here's a tip, meaning that you can do this. You don't have to do just this, but you can do this. I know I just changed this. I literally just changed this. See that? It's stuck on here, that list. Oh, I know why it's doing that. Oh, I think I know why it's doing that. I think it's because this is copyrighted and may not have the right to change some of these. Yeah, that's probably it. Anyway, sorry. I just because I told you to remind me to make sure I changed it. I know I changed this earlier because I was working with another student and they even probably could compliment on how they saw me save it and everything. But anyway, you could use you don't have to just use a loop. There's another way to do this, but the loop will probably be the simplest in my opinion. But I even kind of give you the statement for the for loop. For you don't even have to say XYZ, it's just whatever your letter is or the order is that's in your string. Because recall, that's actually the first way I've actually showed you guys a for loop was using a string, and it went through it. I'm going to give you guys an example using list comprehension. So if I was to build a list, so I'm just going to make a string up. So I ordered 3 hamburgers, 2 cheeseburgers, and whatever G is. But it's A, B, G. So for each character that's in this string, it gets each one of them, and it'll run through that piece in the loop. So each time it goes through a different letter or character. So you're going to loop through each of those characters within the string. You could then use an if, and else. Have you done that before? Yes, several assignments so far. Like I told you, it'll keep coming up, so that you can know what to print out and what to print out appropriately. Because in the end, you want this to come out. The suggestion here is to do something possibly like this: if I, which would be the current letter you're on. So instead of XY, maybe it'll be I here. If it was C, then you would do invoice plus equals a new line hot dog, which means it would move to a new line and then print hot dog ... 175. Then it takes that subtotal, which you would set before the for loop, maybe set it to 0. Yeah, set it to 0. And then add to it 175 plus equals. That way it goes up by 175 each time. A hot dog is selected. So once you are done with that, you would have this portion of the string built already or printed out. So all that would be left would be, if you want to have a separation, you could. But next, you would just need a subtotal. Subtotal is being calculated each time you go through each if or elif or else statement, possibly. And you've added on to the subtotal. So now you have a subtotal. Ding. Tax is calculated by taking the subtotal times this value, which says 8.3% here. Notice that both of these are 2 decimals. The first one should be fine because all of your dollar values are in 2 decimals. But its tax may calculate to be more than 2 decimals, so you need to make sure it's formatted to only show those 2 decimals and that it equals whatever you get for 2 decimals. So maybe you want to use the round function, which I've shown, but I don't think we've fully utilized. We've looked at ceiling and floor. I know many of you have asked about that in the beginning. So round, as it says here, round the number to a given precision in decimal digits. So if I had 6.7523 or whatever, and I said 2 here, 6.75. So let's say I had that saved as a number, 0.75248, 2. My number is 6.75. If I try to add number 1 to it, it still stays at 6.75. It doesn't revert back to what it was before to do the addition, okay? That might be something to think about when you're doing your tax calculation, because tax is just going to be 8.3% times the subtotal. Then your total is going to be your tax plus your subtotal. Okay, so that's what's all written here. Then it says to add a string showing the date and time. If you Google Python date time, you'll have to import date time to use the now property in the suggested strf time format. Okay. So let's just do that. Python date time string. So I'll just use this one since that's the one that was suggested there. All right. Which one do I go to? This will be the full documentation actually coming from Python on it. There's a Stack Overflow one here. So it doesn't really matter to me. W3 Schools is also here. So those are the 3 that I mentioned earlier. Check out W3 Schools because I like them. The reason I like W3 Schools is because they always have this here. Just try it yourself. And it literally will allow you to run it on the web, on the site here. And so right here, right now, it says date time. It strings the date time. It just gave me June. That was it. So, yeah. Go back. Oh, don't know Rick and Morty. Okay. Now function in Python. So now we'll get you the current date time. So it's another function you may want to use. You may want to use it in combination with that string format time, the strf time function, so that you can get that. But now we'll get you the current time. So just do I need to import date time first? Yeah, I think I did. Import date time. Okay. I might need to actually say date time now. Let's see. Yeah, I do. All right, date time. Now, what? Let's see. I have to tell it its time zone. That's a stupid usage. I'm gonna try it now. So date, time, date, time. Now, yeah. All right. So current date time, it is October 5th, 2020, 7:49, 51, 687,771. So it's pretty close to change it over to 750. That's the current time. All right. But yeah, so if I did, let's see, date, time, date, time, now, STR, F time. Nope, it's not gonna respond. Hope I spelled that correctly. Oh, I didn't give it the format. Let's see. I want to say this. You'll want to look up to see what these are. I can't remember if it's A, B, C, or if it's just A, B. Oops, and I forget the string at the end. Okay, come on now. D. Those are string. Close this guy. There we go. All right. Oh, I don't want that. I want all of it. Dang. All right. Now, let me go back. Not what I want. Go back again. Where are you at, buddy? Okay. Oh, I don't want either. There we go. Okay. So here's an example of different formats you can use. So D, like your day, month, year. So day, month, year. ABC. A will give you the actual like day of the week. B should also return the month. And I think that those are the only ones that I even see on here. There's more stuff that you can do too, like if you want it to be in a certain calendar, but that's going beyond the scope of this, to be honest with you. So just the basic date time should be enough. So yeah, okay. So, yeah. Any questions about the assignment? Any questions on like where to start or anything like that? Is it pretty straightforward? Pretty much give them the menu, ask for them to type something in. Should be these. If you want to take this above and beyond, you might want to check to make sure that they are actually entering in only these letters. It's not necessary. It's not a part of the assignment, but you can if you want to. Make sure it prints out each of these things. The suggestion here is to keep adding it to some other string. It's not necessary. Each of these is a new line anyway, so you just print it out every time if you wanted to. So completely up to you. But yeah. Okay. This will make it look fancier, but not necessary. All right. There's no questions. I'm looking at the next one. just got to talk about random, which I've used in a video before, but I want to formally discuss random ints. So this one, we're going to do 1,000 rolls, and we're going to display the results of 1,000 rolls of the die. Oh, sorry, a pair of dice. So in regards to a pair of dice, know that a pair of dice is 2 6-sided cubes that have numbers 1 through 6 on them, on their faces. 1 is opposite of 6, 2 is opposite of 5, 3 is opposite of 4. We won't get into too much detail with that. But let's just say that since each event is equally likely of occurring, meaning that if one event, every event can happen, has the same chance of happening. We can use a function within Python known as random in order to simulate the rolling of a die. So if we wanted to do a pair of dice, we would do 2 of them. Okay. 2 separate die, not the same as take 1 die and multiply times 2. There's a very distinct difference there. A pair of dice is 2 die, not taking 1 die multiplying times 2. Okay, so we will want this to run 1,000 times. So just off the bat, understanding that I would want this to run 1,000 times, how would you make something happen 1,000 times? What would be the best thing to do, or the most sufficient thing to do? For loop, yep, for loop. While loop you can use. Remember, while loop goes to a certain condition. For loop gives it goes in the exact number of times. So for loop will be much better to use in this instance. So the idea is to create those die somehow using random, which I'll show you in a second. And then we're going to have it run 1,000 times. All right. Once we get that going, making it run 1,000 times, we'll want to display the count of each results of the rolls. So because the die each go from 1 to 6, when we take the sum of those die, we get numbers 2 through 12. So we'll want to see how many times 2 occurred: 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's pretty much it. So the hints here, user should input to enter anything into the string. If they enter anything, then you continue. If they haven't entered anything, you don't work, you don't go at all. Just kind of pauses. Then you perform the loop 1,000 times using this method. So it's already given here. So when I showed you random before, we could use import random, that we could utilize the random module. Random int, you probably could guess that it gives a random integer from 1 to 6 inclusive. It says to the that's for each die. Again, remember, we'll do 2 separate die, not the same die times 2. We can determine the sum of the die by taking the first die plus the second die. And then we could increment that respective variable. So if we had rows 2 through 12, possibly, the output we would print the results. So that's the problem at hand. So for this guy, I think this one may be a little tougher for some. So let's plan this one out. So we're going to do 1,000 rows. Okay. So there's a thing about the user entering something for you to continue. You could do, like I showed you before. I mentioned this before, how you would you could use something so that your program will keep running until a certain point happened. This is where you would use that. So that while loop I showed you earlier, this would be a great time to possibly use that. Not the only way to do it, but yeah. So that's the most efficient for what you know of right now. So, but yeah, so we have that. So user, let's input. Look at that, that's crazy, right? See how it's trying to complete my words for me? Man, these updates drive me crazy. User must input something to continue program. Okay. So once that happens, what do we need to do? So Rodney mentioned we'll use a for loop. How many times is the for loop going to go? Oh, yeah, 1,000 is correct. We're going to go 1,000 times. Okay. And so each time it's in the for loop, what do you need to do? Think about this. You got the, I was gonna say craps, but you got your die, 2 die, you got your pair of dice. You're about to roll it, and then you roll it. So you'll roll, say, die 1, and you'll also roll die 2. So we have a pair of dice. Well, how are we gonna roll the first die? Told you we're gonna have random dot ran int 16. How are you gonna roll the second die? Same exact thing. Okay. What do you do with those? What do you do with those die after you roll it? So imagine you're playing Monopoly. Yeah, you add them together. So in other words, that would be whatever we get for the first die plus whatever we get for the second die. Okay. What do you do now with that? What do you do with that now? We're gonna do 1,000 of these. We want to keep track of something. So a suggestion is possibly to print the result. So we could do that. So imagine if we do that, that means we're gonna print out 1,000 different numbers, right? So the screen's gonna have 1,000 numbers. And what do we want to have? In the end, we want to tell the results of our 1,000. We want to tell how many 2s are rolled, how many 3s are rolled, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 12. So my final result is to print results of roll of 1,000 rolls. I should say. So like number of 2s, 3s, 4s, up to 12. But as I go through each roll, so my first roll or first time I'm rolling through, I'm gonna do it 1,000 times. I roll die 1, I get a number, I roll die 2, I get a number, I add those 2 numbers together to get my result. What do I do with that now? If at the end of the day I want to tell people how many 2s I had, 3s I had, 4s, and so on. What do I need to do with that result I got in the for loop? What would you do if I had you do this by hand right now? I told you to roll 1,000 dice, 1,000 dice, and tell me what your results are. How many 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6 of 12s did you have of each? What would you do? Physically think about what you would actually do. You would roll the first die, we said. We're going to roll the second die. We're going to add those two numbers together to get a result. Okay, organize the 2 3s and so on. So by that, we take that. So by organize, I'm assuming you mean we take that result and like tally or do something to keep track of that. Yeah. So yeah. So then we need to organize the result into number of 2s, 3s, 4s, dot dot dot. Okay, cool. Probably gonna ask me for B. All right, cool. So that sounds great. So how would you organize that? So we're in a planning stage now. So how would you organize that? In real life, what would you probably do to organize that number of 2s, 3s, 4s? I promise I'm not asking some kind of super programming question. I'm asking you honestly, what would you do to keep organized, to better organize that? What would you do? In real life, tally it or use a computer for each resulting value. Okay, cool. So we can tally it up. So Ryan said he would sort it. So it's possible that you guys can sort this. You could sort it and then see how many you have of each thing. That's totally available. There's a count function, so you can count how many you have of something too. That does work. But tallying on the way as you go is using a counter would be a good idea too. So you could literally say 2, 3. I don't even know what you may want to call it. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it A, B, you can call it R, whatever. I'm just making up something honestly right now. Honestly, knowing how lazy I am, I probably would do something like this. Call it like results 2, results 3, result 4, result 5, result 6, result 7, result 8, result 9, result 10, result 11, result 12. And I would set it each one equal to 0 at the beginning. And depending on the result, I would add 1 to the appropriate R. Okay. That's exactly how I would do this. Again, Rodney suggested using sort. Sort can be done on a list. So we talked about that for one of the assignments. I think with the one with the Olympic judging one, we talked about how you could use sort, put them in order. So you can use sort. Count will work on strings and tell you how many you have of something. So there are a couple things that you could do to do that as well. If they're already sorted together, it'd be easier to make it easier for you to count how many you have of something, right? So I'll leave that as a separate exercise because it's not something you technically have to do. This one, you could straight up just do if and elifs for this, right? To find out if it whatever it is, you get your result. Say if it's 2, R2 plus equals 1, so that it goes up by 1. If it's 3, R3 plus equals 1. If it's 4, R4 equals plus equals 1. So on and so forth. That can totally be done here. So if I wanted to, though, I could then go back to my messed up somehow. Under there. Okay, there we go. So I do something so that the user can continue to go. I set each one of those equal to what I need it to be. I do my for loop now for something and something. So remember, for a for loop, we need some type of list or so that it can go across. Is there a way that you guys have learned to quickly do do repetition a certain number of times? Is there a special list or iterable that I taught you guys about that will make it easier for you to do something a certain number of times, where you can just give it the number? Anybody? Yeah, the range function. So range, tell it how many times, 1,000. Boom. And you need some kind of dummy variable. I've been told more recently to literally do this. I have never done this in code before. I have seen it done in videos. What it is kind of like the fact that it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to put an underscore here because it really does not matter. When I learned programming, this was not, I don't even know if this was a thing or if my instructor just didn't know about it. But she always told us to put a dummy variable. And if we had no use for it, like this, we don't have a use for the number that we're getting, right? We have no use for that. I mean, there's a way to use it, but we have no use for it. So she would tell us to just put dummy or put something because it has no value. But this is something I've been seeing lately, so I'm gonna test it, see if it works now. Because honest, like I said, I've never used it before. Feels weird to me, but we're about learning here, breaking down some walls. So let's see what happens. So next thing we're gonna do, we need to roll these guys. So call this die1 if I want, because we use there. I'm gonna do random dot ran int 1, 6, just like I said I would. Die2 could be random dot ran it 1, 6. Got my result there. You all said I could add those two together. Just call it result. I'll call it R. It's going to be die1 plus die2. Now I could organize my results into the numbers 2, 3, and 4. And depending on the result, add 1 to the appropriate R. So tons of different ways to do this. Tons of different ways. Does anyone have a suggestion on a way to do this right now? I mentioned one earlier, but there are tons of different ways to do it. Regardless, you're gonna have to do use what I mentioned earlier. You're gonna have to use some kind of conditional statement. Because it's the only way you're gonna be able to say, if this thing is this, then do this. Well, there are tons of ways to do this. So, anyone have any suggestions? Do you want to increase the respective R counter? Okay, yeah, I could just straight up use the counter. Okay, cool. So this is mean like the plus equals measurement by the counter, like just increasing it. So if R equals 2, then R2 plus equals 1. Oops. If R equals 3, R3 plus equals 3, sorry, plus equals 1. LF, and I am very, very lazy, so I'm actually not even going to keep typing that. I'm going to copy this. We're going to keep doing the same thing. I'm going to paste this. That's for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's see if I got them all. Oops. Did I really just do that? I sure did. Some of you, yes, I could have. Someone asks, could you have just put this in a list instead? I could have. Actually would be simpler, because then I could just tell it to go to that. Oh, did I just really put 6 on all those? Yeah, I did. It would be simpler in a list, because then I could just tell it to go to that position in a list and then add 1 to the value. So a list would be easier. If you could, why do I keep doing that? If you could figure out how to set it up to do so, yes. Did I just do it? Yep, did it again. No one's trying to stop me from messing it up either. Okay. Okay, did I miss a number? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I did have an extra one here. Okay. One thing I will say is that else should always be used if you have no other, if like to cover all other options. I don't have to use else though. I am using just if and elifs here. Could I have used else on the last one? Sure. Because you would expect only 12 would be the only other thing that could possibly happen, right? What if they change the way that ren int works? And they decide that the first number you give it, it goes from that start up to 6. So maybe we'll only get 1 through 5. If they ever change it, I'm going to do it this way. That way I can make sure it's accounted for. Because if I just do else, it may not work. Or what if they, I don't know, say that goes up 6 more numbers or something weird? I don't know. That's why I have it this way. It's better just to use the else because I know that this should stay exactly how it is. So it should only go from 2 to 12. But I can just do elifs if I want to. Yeah. So with all that being said, then I can print out nice and fancy whatever I need it. Right. I'm gonna not make it fancy right now. Just gonna do it. Using Control J. That did not work. What are you? All 3. Okay. So F5 the sucker. Let's see what happens. Ooh. Come on, I just want you to do it. Fine. Do it this way. You lazy. Oop to me. Did I get that right? Okay, Let me see if that will allow that tuple to go through. Okay, cool. So it didn't like for me to give all those variables at one time. I can do that in a later version, so that's why I did that. But I just turned it into a tuple, which I showed you all before. That's just me being honestly lazy here. It's probably better for me to say R2 equals 0, R3 equals 0, R4 equals 0, or put it all in a list and set it equal to a list with 0 times 12 or whatever that number is. No, times 11 because of different possibilities. So a couple ways to do that lazily without me having to actually put them all on separate lines. So that's all that was about. Yeah. So let's see. I've actually gone ahead and print my result. Something else happened? Okay, what else happened? Too many values. We expected 11. Did I give it too many? Yeah, I did. Okay. Random. Oh, yeah. Actually, I'll let you guys read that. What did I do wrong? It says name random, not defined. I forgot something. Anyone got any ideas what I may have forgotten? Yeah. Random. Oh. So here we go. Here we got yeah, we got 35, 58. If you add all those numbers up, they should equate to 1,000. But I just randomly generated each of those. So we know how many of each one we had. Which one do you see is most common? Which number do you most commonly roll? 7, yeah. The one in the middle there. Which is kind of cool because this is actually a true thing, you know, or theoretically, if you roll it, 7 would happen the most, and then everything else would happen equivalently around it. So this is a normal distribution. For those of you that have taken a statistics class or ever seen one, that bell-shaped curve, you probably have heard people mention that at least. Bell curve, or oh, I curve on the bell curve, or whatever. That's what that's talking about. So yeah, theoretically, most likely things would fall here, and then the next most common things would be right next to it. And then as you move further away from the middle, these are least likely to happen. So yeah, so cool. Cool thing I like to do for this assignment. So if you wants to wow me, after you get your numbers printed out, you know, nicely displayed, probably like how it is in your homework. What you could do instead is do like a chart. So maybe have just a bunch of dots go up for that many times that it's done, or for every, I don't know, 2 of these, or 2 of whatever this is, you could have that many periods or that many underscores. So it kind of just goes up by that amount, and it'll make it look like a little pie, or not a little pie chart. It'll make it look like a little bar chart. So that's a cool little thing that I've done in the past, or use the vertical bar so it goes up by that amount. Um, so that's pretty simple to do. If you recall, at strings, if you multiply them times a number, they'll just put that many of them. For instance, if I said this, I forgot my, dang it, all right. So now it looks like a little bar. So that way you can kind of see how one is larger than the other. It's just a suggestion to maybe make it look a little cooler. Because then you can actually kind of see that column graph that I was talking about. It's about the bell curve. It'll make it easier to see it happen. So that's just a fun little thing you could do too with this assignment. Not that you guys, don't have enough to do, but yeah, make it your own. Have some fun. I was talking with someone earlier before class started, just how cool it is, like the little things that you all drop in, little funny comments you drop in sometimes. I'm learning some of these new age acronyms, what they mean. Funny faces. Someone did like I don't get they call those memes. I don't get it, but it's like a little face was in it. Someone had printed out at the end. It was like a thumbs up. Someone did. I thought that I laughed. I was like you took the time to figure out how to print out a thumb. You probably could just Google search it and then you copy and paste the text in. But regardless, that made my evening for that 10 minutes. It was hilarious. So yeah, you guys make it your own. Do the assignment which you need to get done, and then make it your own. Because at the end of the day, when you program something, it's going to be your program, right? You can make it look exactly like these assignments do, or results of 1,000 rows. Like, do you need to say that? You could just say results. You could say, make a joke out of it. Drum roll, please, 1,000 times. I don't know. Just have some fun with it. Make it fun. After you finish what you needed to do. Okay. So if you want to add some periods to denote the number of times instead of the actual numbers, do it. I'll hella enjoy that. So anyway, questions about your 2 assignments this week, questions about string functions, questions about things you can do with lists, questions about anything in the past, questions about what we'll do in the future, anything. Okay. Well, I will say then, since you've looked at random now, you might want to think about how you could play the lottery with some friends. Not using actual money because I'm pretty sure that's illegal. But we used to do that sometimes. We used to have to actually create random generators when I was in school. But regardless of that, because we want to see who has comes up with the best random one. But what you could do for your friends is that you guys just play, like, I don't know, something, and you have a random generator because you know how to use one in Python now, or your dice break, or you don't have dice that for your Monopoly set. Pull out your computer, random int, import random first, then random.ran int 1 to 6. You got your homemade computerized dice at any point in time. So pretty cool. But yeah, someone actually made an app in the iOS class that I taught with Professor Steady this summer. Someone made an app that had a bunch of games on it, and yeah, that was really cool. And they actually used the idea of how random works, a random int, in order for it to simulate that, and they just created a picture based off the result. They made an app that had a die on it already. Yeah. And the menu thing is like a standard. Like, people use that all the time. If you're really thinking about it, you've been using it for quite some time too. So okay. All right, so no questions. 2 minutes left on the board. I say we call it Dunzo. So you all have a great week and weekend, and Columbus Day, I will see you because we still have class. Not canceled. So yeah, see you Monday. Stay on if you have any questions. I'm gonna start recording though now.